Hello everyone, I figured I would come and hang out with you for a little bit before I make another disappearance, because past this video I think it might be a good 2 weeks before we see each other again. I'm going to start doing my makeup because I'm ridiculously late. I'm going to take the Inglot eyeshadow base as usual. This is just the last bits of mine which were deposited in this little container. So tomorrow is Saturday, my cousin is arriving on Sunday, and right before his arrival tomorrow we are going to Amsterdam again to see another musical. I think I've mentioned before what a huge fan I am of Hadestown, so if you know anything about musical theater, you will definitely have heard of Hadestown because it's been one of the most popular and awarded musicals in the past 10 years. It's incredible, the music is incredible, and I highly recommend seeing it or listening to the music. If you're into musical theater at all and you've never heard of Hadestown, you should go and listen to it. It's incredible. You know, I've been on a really good streak with the MAC Studio Water Weight. This is in the shade NC25, and since I think I'm very close to panning it, and I think it's about time that this foundation goes out of my collection because it's rather old, I think I'm going to make use of that winning streak and just go for my MAC Studio Water Weight. So what was I talking about? Oh yeah, so Hadestown was recommended to me by a colleague at work who is also really into musical theater. They introduced me to Hadestown shortly after they started working at the lab, which was in 2020. So I've been listening to the music of Hadestown since 2020, and I've been dreaming of seeing it since then. And I think about 2 years ago they announced that Hadestown will also be performed on the West End. So this colleague and I, we considered actually going to London to see it, and I think probably we would have if it weren't for the fact that I was deeply convinced that if the musical has made it to West End, it will definitely make it across the pond to the Netherlands. And I was not disappointed. Last year they announced that Hadestown is coming to the Netherlands, and as soon as we heard that, my colleague and I basically lost it. So we bought tickets as soon as the tickets were available, and tomorrow is finally the day. And we're going with a fairly large group this time because a couple of other colleagues are joining us as well. Some of them, actually, except for me, my husband, who has, you know, unwittingly been listening to the music, and my colleague, I don't think anyone else actually knows what the musical is about. So everyone else will be surprised, and I'm curious what their reaction is going to be. Have you guys heard of Hadestown? Are any of you into musical theater? I think we've talked about it a couple of times, and I know a couple of you are into musical theater. I'm going to take again the Sublimage concealer from Chanel in the shade 20, but if you're not at all into musical theater and you're wondering, Hadestown, what the hell is that about? So this is based on obviously Greek mythology, and it sort of focuses on the legend of Orpheus and Eurydice and Hades and Persephone. And the music is, I would say, very heavily influenced by jazz elements. I think there are a lot of jazz elements in the music, but it also feels very much like a singer-songwriter kind of piece. So it's very hard to pin down the specific like musical genre that Hadestown was written in, because it's not like other musicals. It's very different compared to other musicals. A lot of other musicals, especially some, have like this really recognizably like musical-y type elements, whereas Hadestown I think is very unique in that sense. It's really too bad that we won't hang out right after I see the musical, because I'm sure that I will be absolutely ecstatic and I will have only praise and admiration for it. But I will try my best not to forget to tell you in like 2.5 weeks when we see each other again how that went. But I'm sure it will be amazing. Based on the cast and based on the previews that I've seen, I think it will be great. So the cast that is performing in the Netherlands, I thought originally it would be the cast from the West End, but it's actually a fully Dutch cast. It will be in English, unlike some other musicals which they translate to Dutch, but this one will be fully in English but with fully Dutch cast. Oh, and just FYI, I put a little bit of dim light, the Hourglass ambient lighting powder, to sort of like semi-set the foundation. Now I'm going to push that into my skin with my Real Techniques sponge. I really like this technique, and these two products work really well together. These sort of like more sheer liquid type foundations tend to work very well with the Hourglass ambient lighting powders. Anyway, speaking of musicals, I once again from my colleague heard about one of the currently most popular musicals, the one that got all the Tony Awards basically. It's called Maybe Happy Ending, and that is a new musical that I can now look forward to seeing in the Netherlands in a couple of years, because I'm convinced that they will bring it here. It would be nice if they brought it in English, but honestly, I wouldn't mind too much if it's also in Dutch, because the musical is absolutely beautiful. Once again, it has a little bit of like a jazzy element to it, but maybe Happy Ending is more like a, I would describe the style of the music and the story a bit more like a Pixar meets jazz. It's so beautiful, it's so wonderful. If you live anywhere near New York and you can go see it on Broadway with the original cast, I would highly recommend to do so. I'm going to do my brows with the Too Faced Laminating Brow Wax, and maybe Happy Ending has a bit of an unusual story that, like, if I tell you the story, you'd be like, but how would you translate it into a musical? Because it's set in Korea, in Seoul, and it centers around two helper robots. So it's sometime in the future, humans have helper robots at home to, you know, help them out with all sorts of things. And we have these two retired, like out of commission helper robots who embark on a journey to find the owner of one of the helper robots. It's so sweet and the music is so beautiful, and it's, if I could, I would go see it tomorrow. Now that it's summer, I've been feeling really inspired to wear all of my cream products. So I'm going to grab one of the oldest cream products that I have in my collection. This is the original Soleil Autant de Chanel bronzer from Chanel. And you can see that I've made a significant dent in it. It's quite incredible that this thing still smells well. And do you know how long I've had it? Since we moved into this house in 2017. By makeup expiration standards, especially for cream products, this bronzer is geriatric. It's possibly even past geriatric. But it's still going strong, it performs well, it doesn't smell weird, and I'm telling you, the formula and the color are so lovely that I think until the day this starts to sting, it's going to stay in my collection and I'm going to enjoy it. Every last bit of it. But it is nice to see that I've made such a significant indentation into it, because it means it's been well loved, and because it was one of the first, like, more expensive luxury makeup products that I ever bought. I like to see that it was well used and the money was well worth and well spent. See, it still looks incredible. I love it. Anyway, so I had started to tell you that after tomorrow, on Sunday, that is coming weekend, my cousin from the US is coming. I mentioned in one of my previous videos that a relative of mine who lives in the US is going to be visiting me. Finish your sentences, Mariam. Is going to be visiting me for the next 2 weeks with the intention to shadow me at the lab, because he just finished high school, he wants to study biology in college, and I think he wanted to just see what it's like to work in an academic lab and possibly help him a bit with writing an essay, I think, for his college applications, maybe something of the sorts. But anyway, just to have an interesting, exciting experience pertaining to biology. So that's the biggest reason actually he's coming. I'm going to take the Pat McGrath cream blush in the shade Peach Lotus, which is this beautiful apricot-y type shade, very summery. I've really been enjoying my cream products now in the summer, especially all of my cream blushes. So on Sunday he arrives, and next week we are full on busy at the lab, the week after as well. So it really does seem like it's very likely that we will not see each other in the next couple of weeks. Once he leaves, I have a couple of days in between his departure and our departure when we go on holidays. I have all the best intentions to film in that week, so the few days in between. But you know, if life happens and I do not have the time, this might be the last video you see until mid-August or something. So I pre-apologize in advance in case that happens, but optimally, ideally, we will see each other in the end of July, right before I go on holiday. But lately, you know, I've had so many good intentions about filming videos, and it just hasn't really worked out for me. I had all the best intentions to take it really easy in July because June was so crazy, and we are already in mid-July and I haven't been able to take it easier one bit. Taking the Victoria Cream Stick Highlighter in the shade Pearl to highlight, I maybe had like 1 or 2 days which were very easygoing in the beginning of last week, but this past week has once again been pretty insane. Mostly because, if you remember, I told you that we bought this very fancy new device in our department, and the group that I work at, we were tasked with essentially being responsible for overseeing the installation, the validation, and getting trained on how to use the device. So all of that happened in June, but since holidays will be coming and we didn't really want to have too long of a lapse between having learned how to use the device and actually going to use it for an experiment, we thought, okay, now that everyone is still here, so myself and another colleague at the lab, we are the two people doing the experiment, but since we're not really going to overlap with holidays and we wanted to make sure that we use the knowledge that we gained a couple of weeks ago immediately before it floats all out, we thought, let's set up an experiment ASAP. So we set up an experiment and we actually completed it this past week. So today I'm going to freeze down the samples that we're going to analyze. So essentially the experiment is done, but it was once again pretty crazy. I'm going to take the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Finishing Setting Spray to set all the base makeup. So the experiment went, by all accounts, relatively well. For a pilot experiment, I pretty much expected to run into unexpected issues, which happened several times during the week. I think for the most part the experiment went well, and I think it will be hopefully semi-successful, but we certainly ran into some issues that we're going to have to address once we set up a real experiment. Luckily, the company that we bought the device from, the people are extremely helpful. They've been watching over every step of the way. They've been incredibly helpful and involved, so I'm sure that they're going to help us solve the issues that we faced this past week. For today's look, I'm going to be using the Praline at and Dew palette from Viseart. This is the palette that I was wearing in my monthly roundup and empties, and I enjoyed the look that I did with the palette on that day so very much that I figured I would come back and show it to you. So for starters, I'm going to take this shade here. It's more like a mid-tone, sort of camel-toned matte eyeshadow. Then we have this shade here, which is essentially a somewhat deeper undertone of this one, which is going to go in my outer corner and, you know, slightly through the crease. But let's start off with these two eyeshadows and then I'll tell you what we'll do for the rest of the look. I'm grabbing a fluffy blending brush and going into the lighter shade. Now that this experiment, this like pilot experiment, has been completed and it's currently out of my hands, I'm going to take a chill pill, and next week when my cousin is here, we are going to be pretty busy, but it's going to be pretty low stake experiments, nothing that I need to stress about, because, you know, I feel like really responsible for making this device work. Also because no part of it is cheap. The device was very expensive, the kits that we use with the device are very expensive, so every time something does not work out, I just feel like I'm throwing money in the trash. Right now it's fine because the pilot experiment that we set up was very, very small scale and we were still using the training kits that the company brought for our training week, so I don't feel too bad if things don't work out. But eventually, once we set up a real experiment, everything will be much more large scale, much more expensive, and you know, that I try to separate how expensive everything at the lab is with executing it, but it's impossible to tell my brain because, you know, first of all, I'm Eastern European. We are very frugal. So I try to save money wherever I can, not cutting corners, just saving money wherever I can. So when something this expensive is put into my hands, I feel a lot of responsibility and it stresses me out, honestly, which probably is quite normal. Anywho, you know what? There is this vanilla type shade here in the Viseart Praline, so I'm going to use that to highlight my brow bone, just very, very lightly. It will help the skin there to look a little bit smoother, and it will also help the transition shade to look a bit smoother around the edges. And how have you guys been? Are you all planning to go on holiday soon? I don't know how it works in other countries, but at least in Europe, past mid-July and especially in August, workplaces tend to be quiet as a graveyard. Everyone is on holiday, no one is working. If you want to get something done in the month of August, you can forget about it. Taking a somewhat smaller brush now that fits snugly into my crease and going into the deeper matte shade to apply here in the outer corners and like outer portion of the lids. Tell me about your summer holiday plans, if you have any. We are going to do the same thing that we always do. We're going to go to Bulgaria, to the beach, and we're going to tremendously enjoy ourselves doing absolutely nothing. My plan is to do nothing but read a nice book. I would like to also intensify my lash line just a little bit, so I'm also going to grab the deeper brown shade and I'm going to apply that very much close to the lash line. and then bring it a little bit outwards in like a smoked winged eyeliner shade, but without any structure, just like very unstructured, very smoky, just to give a little bit of definition in the lash line that really seems to, I think, flatter my eyes. I'm not actually sure that I did that the other day when I posted the monthly roundup and empties. I think I possibly kept it just at the lighter browns, but today we are, you know, spicing it up a little bit. Now I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to take a little bit of the NYX glitter glue, because even though the shadows we're going to apply are not necessarily highly metallic and glittery, I think they do still benefit from having a tacky base. So I'm going to just take a little bit of my NYX glitter glue, smoosh it onto the inner corner and lid area where I want to apply the more metallic type shades. And then we are going to go in with the two shades that I did have in the video a couple of days ago. I really loved how those two shades looked together. And I want to say that I used both my fingers and a brush. So I'm going to start off with a brush, and I'm going to go into this shade here, this beautiful like peachy champagne type shade. And then towards the outer portion of the eye, I'm going to put this shade over here. I think these two work beautifully together. But I will first take the peachy shade here and apply that essentially all over most of my lids, because I think this shadow is just really flattering against my skin. You know, I think I used my fingers. I'm going to do that now too. I'm just going to apply this eyeshadow on the biggest portion of my lid using my fingers. And then I'm going to apply a tiny bit of the deeper metallic shade towards the outer corner of the eye. Oh, I just love the undertone of this shade. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, taking another finger, going into the slightly deeper brown, and just applying that here in the outer portion of the lid. I am going to use the brush to wiggle a little bit here between the two shades, just so the transition between them is rather smooth and seamless. On my lower lashes, I'm actually going to use this shade here, the mid-tone brown that we applied in the outer corner, and I'm going to run that very gently here on my lower lashes. And of course, you guessed it, I'm wearing a green shirt. We're going to apply a fun green pop of inner corner highlight. So I have two options here. This is the shade Cosmic. Yes, this is the shade Cosmic from Bobbi Brown, which I think fits the shirt slightly better because it is a slightly cooler undertone. And we have also Jade Facette, which I think fits just as nicely. But Jade Facette also has a slightly like a cool gold flip going to it. And because the eyeshadows that I have on my eyes are somewhat warmer in nature, I actually think Jade Facette is going to be the shade that fits a little bit better. So I'm going to clean off one of my brushes, and I'm going to apply Jade Facette as an inner corner pop of green. Oh yeah, that works very nicely. Gorgeous. I love this eyeshadow. I never use it as a lid color because I just don't find these sort of like pastel-y light shades to look flattering all over my lids, but they just look stunning as inner corner highlights. And let me tell you, Jade Facette may be one of my favorites. Alright, let's do lips together. Just in case anyone was wondering what I had on my lips prior to applying the lipstick in a few moments, I had the lip gloss in Ellie Angelic from Pat McGrath Labs. This is one of my oldest lip glosses from her. You can also see there's not that much left. I absolutely freaking adore this lip gloss, but I'm currently not in a lip gloss phase, so I've taken out all of my lip glosses. I'm going to start using them as like prep for my lips because I don't want them to go bad without me having made the most use out of them. I don't even know if Ellie Angelic is still around, because the last few times when I checked, Ellie Angelic was actually continuously out of stock. So I am going to be using Eliza Sand, which is one of... Eliza Sand? No. I'm going to be wearing one of my Gucci Neutrals. This is in the satin formula and the shade is Eliza Ginger. It's also the lipstick that I was wearing in my monthly roundup and empties. And because I've been talking about how much I love these Gucci Neutrals lipsticks, I wanted to actually start wearing them on camera more often. I don't think it's an ideal match, but I'm going to take the 1N lip liner from Lisa Eldridge to just outline my lips. And you can see I still have a few flecks of glitter left from the lip gloss from Pat McGrath, but I don't mind that. I think they'll mix really well with the formula from Gucci. Going in with Eliza Ginger. And you know what, I'm thinking, since I have Angelic here, I'm not going to apply it full on, and I never take lip glosses straight onto my lips when I'm wearing already a color, because you're going to just end up putting the color back in the tube. I'm going to just use my fingers and lightly dab a bit of Angelic over top of Eliza Ginger, because I think those two formulas might work well. And I don't know whether you can see it, but Angelic flips from a lime green to a pink. So I think when I look straight on, I mostly see the pink, but I do think in certain lighting when it hits, it's going to look a little bit more green, which I think fits very nicely with that inner corner green pop that we put. Anyway, this is the final look. I hope that you enjoyed it. Yes, I know it's a repetition of a lot of looks that I've done that are very similar to this one. Don't know what to tell you. I'm just super boring lately. I don't have the energy to be creative, okay? I just want to get through the day. So hopefully you enjoyed this little catch-up. It was really mostly for us to catch up before I disappear for a few weeks, because I just really don't want you to forget about me. I'm very narcissistic like that. You can't forget about me. I'm still here, okay? Obviously, I'm kidding. Don't spend any time on me besides, you know, the 20 minutes or something that we share on YouTube. Anyway, I'm going to stop rambling now because I'm really going off on like really irrelevant tangents. Thank you so much for watching. Do let me know how you are doing. Please leave me a comment. As usual, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, whenever that is. Bye!